Welcome to another episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host, and on this episode, I am pumped to have Ryan Noonan on the show. He's the content manager at 4for4 Bets. He's the co-host of the Move the Line podcast, and he's kind of my new co-host, I guess, on this podcast. I've had him on for golf, and now we got to talk some NFL. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Honored to be even considered in the sphere of being an Ed Fang co-host. So absolutely stoked, like you are, to be at this time of the year. It snuck up, I think, on us as it typically does when you start to try to map out your preseason schedules and divisional previews. And I know you're doing a lot of preview stuff at this point too. So yeah, I'm thrilled that we're here. It's easy for me. I'm kind of knee deep in the weeds of the PGA Tour and all things golf during the summer.
Right.
But then once we get on the other side of major championship season, which we are now, we're kind of getting into the playoffs of golf, and the playoffs of golf, they still struggle to land the plane there. It's I think a tough thing to do, but definitely feels like we are approaching football season now. The camps are open.
Can't wait. The Football Analytics Show is brought to you by the Power Rank Sports Betting Newsletter. Looking for some action on any given weekend? This is the free service for you, as 5 Nugget Saturday is my curated list of tips and analytics. I bring you stuff from sharp people like Ryan Noonan. To sign up for free, go to thepowerrank.com. Ryan, give me a controversial NFL take.
Man, this is controversial. This is a tough one. I'm trying to think, team level, player level. I think there's no more important position from a team level standpoint than the quarterback. So we're going to make it player level. And I've been alone on this long island by myself for a little while. I'm still holding out hope.
Okay. Can't wait to hear it.
I still think there is good football, maybe even in 2025, in the future of Anthony Richardson.
All right.
Now, go ahead. I don't want to step on your toes. If you want to bail me out already, I'm good with it, because I know I feel like I'm alone here.
No, I don't think you're alone. There's someone else that I think would agree with you, but we'll leave that to the end. I want to hear your case first.
Well, I mean, look, we've seen 348 pass attempts from the kid since he's been in the league. And this is a guy that came out of Florida, and the knock on him was how extremely raw in the limited snaps that he had at the collegiate level was. That was really kind of the knock on him going so early. And then we've had some pretty exciting ball, some pretty bad ball too, right? Like he's just been from a clean pocket, below average accuracy without a doubt. Now, my pushback coming in like his, development phase was that the development phase needed to be pretty long, because not only did he not have a lot of reps at Florida, the system that he was playing in was just nothing that would resemble an NFL system. He was just asked to, be the freak athlete that he was, and then to win vertically with really a bunch of guys that weren't, going to be playing at the next level, right? It's Ricky Pearsall and then, really nothing. So it's been really uneven. Obviously, he struggled to stay healthy. We had obviously the tap himself out situation, which is not great in the locker room. But now we're still dealing with a guy who's been outsnapped by Desmond Ridder, Josh Dobbs, and Zach Wilson in the last 2.5 years, barely ahead of Cooper Rush, Jake Browning, and Bailey Zappi. So we feel so confidently that he's just washed at 24 years old with zero reps, when some of the things that we know are sticky and predictable. His ability to avoid sacks, his pressure to sack rate is elite. And that's not just like, winning deep. And this is a guy that's tried to win vertically still. So he's holding on to the ball a little bit long. He is an absolute weapon with his legs, right? We're talking about a better athlete than Cam Newton, which is wild to say. But like when he tested at the combine, when he came out, we've never seen a size speed adjusted RAS score like Anthony Richardson did. And now he's supposed to be tied to an offensive coordinator that we all thought pretty highly of, that really hasn't been able to get it going there. I don't know. I'm just not ready to bury him yet. I think, we know what Daniel Jones is like. So why would they want to give the keys over to Daniel Jones, have like a 7 to 9 win season in a winnable division? because I'm not really necessarily bullish on. I think there's a lot of questions in Houston. So look, he's not giving us a lot of reason to be confident, because if you can't be, 50% accurate in a clean pocket, that's troubling. But I still think that we don't have the answers to the test. So whether he ends up being a home run free agent addition as a backup somewhere else down the line, or it all comes together for him this year and he's kind of learned from his mistakes in the last couple of years, had a nice offseason, they've got some nice weapons there, I think he could still have some really good football left.
I love it. So in terms of Anthony Richardson, Matt Waldman of Rookie Scouting Portfolio was really high on him. He actually had him as his highest ranked quarterback in that class. And I remember talking to him about it, and Matt said that Anthony Richardson is an elite learner, able to pick things up. I'm not sure necessarily that we've seen that. I think he's obviously had his struggles. I think you need to see some improvement in not just trying to chuck the ball deep every single time. I've been looking at ADOT values for wide receivers, and you just kind of have to throw out the values for Indy last year, because there are multiple receivers that have ADOT values that are just insanely high. I also think there's an element of patience that Americans simply don't have for anything, much less the quarterback position. You did mention that it's 348 pass attempts, and yeah, I think we could see a lot better. Am I betting on seeing a lot better for Anthony Richardson? I'm not quite sure about that yet, but I guess it also begs the question, like, Daniel Jones isn't that old, right? I mean,
no, not at all. But I mean, we feel like I don't want to say we've seen his ceiling, but I feel like I know what he is, right? Like, he's also a good athlete, right? He is I don't know, but again, we're talking about up against the freakiest of freak athletes. He's 75, 80% of the athlete that Anthony Richardson is. He has shown the ability to, I think, complete, at least a league average rate from a clean pocket, which is something Richardson has not shown yet. But I mean, we know that if this coaching staff and this front office is tied to Richardson as a prospect, and that typically is what happens, right? You hitch your wagon to a quarterback, 4th overall, you're almost married to them in terms of like how you're going to be. So like, I don't know how they keep their job if they just roll out Daniel Jones and have what I think we would all think is somewhat of a median outcome for 2025. I think there's a ceiling to be had with 80th percentile, 85 percentile Anthony Richardson season that could be potentially enough to win, I think, a fairly wide open division.
Daniel Jones is 28 years old, and I think that's old. I think we have seen a lot of Daniel Jones, but maybe it's not too old, right? When you have quarterbacks playing until they're 40 years old, right? So I'm just playing a little devil's advocate here.
It's definitely a different time.
If we're not going to give up on guys, and Daniel Jones has had his injury issues that has derailed a lot of his seasons.
He's played behind some pretty porous offensive lines.
Had that nice year with Brian Daboll that first year where they made the playoffs. So I don't know. I like to pick on Daniel Jones, but if you remember when he was a rookie, man, he came out of the gate swinging.
Sure,
like he was electric for a while, and you just kind of wonder if Anthony Richardson had a stretch like that. Maybe even in his 3rd year, how that would kind of change the narrative, right?
I think it can happen real quickly. I think what you said, I think is perfect. It's definitely what's going on in the National Football League nowadays, and we're a little bit older. I think we remember a different generation where it was almost uncommon to grab a early rookie quarterback and put him in and get starter reps right away. And then, obviously as the financials have changed and it was kind of the skeleton key thing for a little bit, where it's like, man, if you have that quarterback on a rookie contract, it allows you to do so much more from a roster building standpoint. These guys are just so rushed. If anyone really would have benefited from the old school, which is even like at this point, Mahomes, or going back to an Aaron Rodgers, right? Where they just were able to fully redshirt for a year and learn. And again, there's something to be said for these things. Like, not everyone is the same. These kids come from college, and then, I mean, the expectation that you're going to just hit the ground running, where you're in a new town, you don't know where you're going to live, you got all this money all of a sudden, and it's like, it's just a different beast. I think that might change over time with NIL and, guys become pro ready more so than ever. But at the quarterback position, the demands of that are different than anything else in any other sport, even in this sport. And I think that there's such little grace and room for these guys to grow, and they just need to be good right away. And if they're not, it's just like, well, no, I mean, we need to move on. We automatically need to address the position in the offseason again. It's like, well, yeah, we know that if you don't have the answer to the task at quarterback, then you're really struggling. But you also have to give, especially when you take a chance like Richardson, unique prospect with no real college reps either, you kind of knew what you're getting into. So you just need to let him go. Preseason stuff, the camp stuff so far has been better, right? We thought it was going to be maybe just a dead season. The shoulder injury seemed like he was going to be working from behind. He needed camp reps. He wasn't going to get him, but he seems to have been, ahead of schedule here. So I hope he wins that job. I hope he gets a little bit of a leash to operate, and we can see maybe some of that potential upside and growth.
It's interesting to think that the Colts could have taken Will Levis with that pick, but they didn't. Mm-hmm. And then Will Levis, came in at the tail end of his rookie year and was pretty good. And he looked like the future of the franchise about a year ago. And then Tennessee was terrible and, took another quarterback with the first pick. So things are, I think things change quickly for better or for worse. And I admire your patience.
Hopeful.
Ryan, what does August look like for you? You're getting ready for the NFL. Like, what are you reading? Like, are you looking at win totals or season-long props? Are you thinking about spreads already? What's going on in your mind right now?
Yeah, we are doing our divisional preview series on Move the Line. Connor and I have been cranking those out. We've knocked out 5 so far. We worked our way through the AFC, started with the NFC North. That process is, I think, something that really helps me dial in. Football and the cadence of the offseason schedule doesn't allow us to ever really fall out of the loop from a news cycle. So it's never that far away, but I think just the process of going in, a little bit more detailed schedule analysis, getting an understanding of, some early camp stuff, that process, I think really turns up the dial and gets me ready for the season. That's a big, big piece of it. And I think if your audience remembers me in the past and being here in the past, I spent a lot of time on the defensive side of the ball, both in terms of just analysis and props, both sacks and tackles. So last week I finished, it's the first time I've done this to this degree. I've really just been doing, tackle projections in season week to week. This time I gave a lot of time and effort to a real top-down sack strategy in making projections. So I just finished both tackles and sacks and feel really, really good about it. There are a couple of books that have season-long sacks out right now. Not enough for me to have fired. We need a few more outs for our 4for4 subscribers before we push out some of these really just MGM and Caesars. So these Caesars will let us get down, but I would like to have a few more outs before we get down. But I feel like there's going to definitely be some edges. I'm not a big week one spread better ahead of time because just the variance that can come out there. Kudos to anyone that picked off some. I think the Denver line at open against Tennessee, I thought was a pretty soft one. But I think that's been cooked out. But win totals I'll get into. Season-long player props as well. I need to do a little bit more work now that I have projections done on the defensive side. But those I'll dabble on win totals and season-long props for sure.
Excellent. What are you doing with tackles and sacks? Like, can you maybe not? Obviously, I don't want you to give away the secret sauce, but
sure.
Can you give an overview of how you are projecting those things out for the season?
Yeah, top down from obviously a play standpoint. So being really within a range of a handful of percent either way on total plays. I think there's a great way to PFF has some undercover metrics that I know that they track that they don't publicly release for whatever reason. Like they don't have them in their database, but one of them is expected sacks. They have a writer, John McCurry, shout out to him. He does, John Macri does some great work. Sorry, John, butcher your name. And the expected sacks are the most predictive year in and year out for future sacks. So obviously way more predictive than previous year sacks or anything like, pass rush win rate or pressure rates or pressures or anything like that. So I spend a lot of time from a tackle projection standpoint, making sure that I have a good feel for depth charts, for snap rates. And then the nuance in sacks is also understanding what their specific players' pass rush rate is going to be, based off of just the expected pass rate for the team that they face, right? Depending on game scripts. So there's some nuance in there. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some edges in terms of, I feel like most of what the books are pricing is based off of previous year sacks. And, it's very, very noisy. I mean, sacks in general can be very noisy in terms of, how frequently you get pressures and those convert to sacks. So expected sacks, I think, is a nice little edge there if you know how to extrapolate it and make it work for you.
With this expected sacks, like I would think if you want to project out sacks for the future year, you'd look at pressure rates and things like that. I presume that's baked into this expected sacks.
What's feeding expected sacks is pressure rates, pass rush win rates, a lot of the underlying metrics. If pass win rate on true pass sets, pressures in true pass sets, all those different things are weighed to a degree to go into expected sacks. So it's a great metric. Year over year is mostly correlated, the most correlated stats to projecting sacks moving forward.
Awesome. Ryan, is there a bet that you'd be willing to share with us?
Yeah, I'm going to hold off on some of the sack stuff because again, there's not enough outs. Though I do think that there's something to be said for Aiden Hutchinson 6-1 to lead the league in sacks. There was a lot of talk last year if they would have made the Super Bowl that he was ready to go. So I'm not really worried about the injury. Apparently in camp he seems full on ready to go. I was having an absolute monster season, and I think that there's just part of his appeal is that he doesn't come off the field. Those elite edge rushers, when you think of like a Myles Garrett, who from just a pure per snap basis is by far the best edge rusher in the league. Like if you're defensively making, the first pick to start your defense, you should take Myles Garrett. Unfortunately, I don't think his team's very good. They're going to be facing a higher rate of, rushes than normal. So I don't think he's going to be in there quite as much. And just in general, he's kind of hovering around, say 78, 80% of the snaps, where a guy like Aiden Hutchinson is typically clocking, even like from a per game basis last year, over 90% of the snaps. So just more natural in-game opportunities for Hutchinson to get sacks. So I have him, a couple sacks clear of anyone. So even though it's kind of the chalk at, plus 550 plus, or plus 600, I think he's a nice look to lead the league in sacks. Another one, I'm going to stay in my lane here. Carson Schlesinger, 40-1 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now, it's been a award that's often gone to edge rushers. You'd occasionally get a cornerback. Very few linebackers have won this award in the last 15, 20 years. Shaq Leonard was the last. Another similar second round linebacker. It's actually been 3 second round linebackers in the last 30 years that have won the award. Schlesinger was the first pick of the second round. So, if you're looking at this goes to first round picks, kind of arbitrary, but I understand the historical trends there. But look, Jim Schwartz is an aggressive, attack-minded defender, schemer on the defensive side of the ball. And Schlesinger's really benefited from some injuries. I think he was probably going to work his way into the field to begin with, but Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is on PUP. He's out for the year. Jordan Hicks just retired last week. So we went from Schlesinger probably being an every down linebacker from the jump to being an every down linebacker from day one, and has elite side to side closing speed, was a real efficient tackler at UCLA, 90 solo tackles last year, really good pursuit angles. The tape is really good. Natural instincts against the run, even though he doesn't have a lot of college reps there. 5 sacks, 2 interceptions. So we can make some big plays. And this has not always been an award that's necessarily had to track to team success, whereas Defensive Player of the Year is very much tied to team success. We know MVP obviously is tied to team success. Defensive Rookie of the Year, you can just put up huge counting stats, play the entirety of the season and no one really emerges. We see just Abdul Carter is just kind of in a timeshare, doesn't, giant stink and doesn't have like huge counting stats, or, one of like, Michael Williams or James Pierce, some of the other like edge rushers that are on the top of the board, just kind of fizzle out or don't have anything that goes, crazy. And, you get all of a sudden Schlesinger has 145, 150 tackles, makes a highlight pick 6 or something in an island game. All of a sudden, we were kind of cooking with gas. So it was 60 at open. For subscribers were able to get that. I think 40 is still bettable, but now we have some news here with, obviously the playing time change has opened up quite a bit. So I still think even at 40, he's a pretty good play.
Awesome. Do you feel like people are underestimating Cleveland? Because I think the defense is going to be good. They still have a lot of good pieces. You talked about Garrett. I'm not disagreeing with that. You talked about the rookie linebacker. You got Denzel Ward and a couple other good coverage guys that have been good over a multiple year stretch. And look, I mean, it's pretty easy to talk poorly about their offense, but I think, in a world where that defense is one of the top 5 in the league, if not the best, and Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco can get you to league average on offense, I mean, that's certainly more than a 4.5 win team.
Yeah, Connor and I both said that in our preview for the North. There's definitely it's, I think, a better roster. Again, it comes down to quarterback, and if you don't have the answer, you got 5 guys. It feels like you got no one. But I do think that there's a path there for them to be okay. They lost Martin Emerson to an Achilles injury yesterday, so that hurts a little bit on the perimeter. But they do have good depth. Like they have some depth at safety. They run a pretty consistent single high set. They can be very aggressive. They like to blitz, create pressure, and they're going to be able to do that. I think Isaiah McGuire off the edge as a complimentary piece to Myles Garrett was really nice last year. They've drafted some other guys up front. Obviously Mason Graham this year. They took the other kid Hall last year, the second round, another Ohio State kid who just had some trouble staying on the field. But there's definitely some talent there, right? So like you said, if they can kind of get to, I think league average offense is probably rich, but I think they're going to win some football games they probably shouldn't be in because they can muck it up a little bit. And I don't think the defense is going to be a better than top half of the league defense. So yeah, I mean, they're interesting for sure. So that's part of why I don't think I'm making this pick on a kid that's going to be on a 3-win football team.
Right. I mean, they just need to get out of the bottom 5 on offense, right? And I think they can win some games. I mean, also Justin Fields and the Jets, not many people are particularly excited about the offense, but that defense is pretty good.
Yeah. Fields another bet that I make. I can't let my co-host Connor Allen hear this, because if I bet a season-long offensive over prop, he will come over and strangle me.
Dude, he knows that some of those win.
He knows that some of them, we've talked about it. I agree. So I think week in and week out, unders, it's the right side more times than not. Season-long bets, even more so. That doesn't mean that unders or overs can't win. You got to pick your spots. But I think Justin Fields, over 625.5 rushing yards. I mean, over 1,000 is plus 350. This is at 1143 in 15 games back in 22, 13 games in 23, and he had 657, so comfortably over the 6.25. He had almost 300 last year in just 4 starts. And with this team, they have a really good offensive line. And what did Justin Fields do every time that he faced the Lions? He ran for $120 against Aaron Glenn, who is very excited, I'm sure, to just let him loose. They have very limited pass catching options outside of Garrett Wilson. I think Justin Fields, his legs are a huge part of what they want to do this year. So I get, that if you do like chasing overs, that you probably should bet on some ceiling outcomes. That's why I think the over 1,000 is interesting as well instead of the binary 6.25, but that's low to me. I think that should be significantly higher. That's on FanDuel. That'd probably be one of my favorite season-long props on the board right now from an offensive side. So yeah, I mean, same point. I get what you're doing there. That defense is competitive, and if they can find a pulse offensively, Field stays healthy. The offensive line is fantastic. And you got kind of a 2-3-headed punch or 3-headed monster with the combination of Fields and your 2 running backs. Like, I don't know. They can muck up some football games and again, be around and win some games they maybe shouldn't win.
Yeah. 2 things. First, we mentioned your co-host Connor Allen because he always posts every year about his analysis of season-long player props, and basically the under wins at a pretty high rate, but not all the time.
Correct.
I posted that in 5 Nuggets. If you read that, and you should definitely check out all of Connor's work. And then secondly, one of the reasons that you should bet the under is because of injuries. When I've been looking at like season long interception props, I feel like quarterbacks just don't get hurt as much with the modern rules in the game. Like even players like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes that do run and put themselves in danger. I'm not necessarily sure the same logic applies to Justin Fields. I think he's been hurt a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more reckless. So you do have the danger of him getting hurt. And well, he's already hurt, right? He's got a dislocated toe.
He's back. It ended up being nothing. I thought it was going to be something with his toe, but he was instantly back at practice the next day.
Does that just instantly heal these days for these kids? Like if I dislocate my finger, am I just?
I mean, like Alex Singleton, linebacker for the Broncos, broke his thumb, and they're like, yeah, he might miss like 5 days. He's gonna have surgery and be right back out. It's like, doesn't he need his thumb to tackle guys?
But more you need your toe to run. That's you kind of need a toe to run.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, who knows what's going on with the sports science these days? But we're
gonna live to 125. Ed, hope you're ready.
Right, that'd be great. No, but Justin Fields' injury, does that worry you?
Yeah, I mean, that would worry me for any, I would worry me from a game level betting his rushing over for sure. That's part of why I think that I just like the 6.25 because, I don't need it to get to the 1,000 for plus 350. I basically am banking on getting 15 to 16 games out of him. And I very much could, but I also feel like there's some room for him to clear this if you're to play, say, 11 to 13 games, which I think is within the range of outcomes with his size and how frequently I think he's going to be taking hits. So, again, just with the reps too of doing this a little bit more, he's also hopefully learned how to avoid taking some of those bigger hits more frequently. So running out of bounds, learning how to slide, all those different things. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just a light number. I mean, I was surprised that wasn't at least 700 considering all the things that we've heard from that staff this year, what they want to do and how much his legs are going to be a part of the game plan.
Ryan, I wanted to ask you about Cincinnati because they have signed all their guys on offense and kind of letting the chips where they fall on defense. But I also feel like this is what the Colts did with Peyton Manning in the day. And it kind of makes sense because offense is predictable and defense is way less predictable. So take that into consideration, everyone who's listening. When we're talking about the Browns and the Jets defense, it could all go poorly too. But anyways, what do you think about Cincinnati's strategy going forward or what they're doing and how it projects for the season?
Yeah, they're a tricky team. It's definitely a team that I've found myself just looking back year after year that I've probably been too high on. It's definitely easy to get sucked into some of the Joe Burrow magic and Jamar Chase and what you get from T. Higgins when he's healthy. So the defense was bad last year. And I don't think there's any way to pretend it wasn't, but I also think that they had cluster injuries in the secondary. So they came in with some questions, some young guys that they were really hoping to step up. DJ Turner on the outside, Dax Hill in the slot. And I think that they expected a lot out of them and they got hurt in September in back-to-back weeks. Now, all of a sudden you had some guys that were, fringe practice squad guys are having to play starter level reps for you. And, they wanted Cam Taylor-Britt to be the guy on the outside and they, had to even bench him in the middle of the season. They got real ugly real quick. Questions in the secondary weren't great. Like Von Bell looked like he had, lost a step and, Geno Snowden was kind of playing out of role. And then all of a sudden, you had some injuries, still guys coming back slow in terms of the interior defensive line that were, real and just teams could gash them on the ground. It was really bad. So I think part of it was injuries. Now you got BJ Hill back healthy in the interior. They bring in TJ Slayton from Green Bay, who's been solid for them for the last couple of years. They drafted Chris Jenkins out of Michigan as well on the second round last year. He developed. So they have a little bit more depth there. You get Dax Hill back. You get DJ Turner back on the outside. Now, hopefully you get something out of the pass rush, because last year it was insane that Trey Hendrickson had the year that he had, considering that there was no threat from anyone else anywhere to bring pressure and get to the quarterback. Just kind of freakish year for him. So maybe Joseph Asai can step in. I'm not a huge fan of Shamir Stewart, who they drafted in the first round. We know his holdout's over now, finally. This is like the ultimate shorts and t-shirt Olympics champion here, who, like, again, tested off the charts, but just with no college production to speak of. And now, again, maybe he develops and gets into, NFL coaching and something can happen there. But we also have a new DC, right? Al Golden, like, coming from the college game. Like, what does he do? I think there's something to be said. Like, I think everyone thought that Lou Almirola was a pretty solid, at least in-game adjuster. Like, you would see that maybe sometimes struggle in the first half, and they would come out with some different looks and do some different stuff in the second half, and I would be able to keep them in games. So, I don't know, long way of saying that I think the defense can be better. I think they were undoubtedly terrible last year, but I never really hear the injuries discussed as to why. When you lose two young corners in September and you're starting to really have to piece it together with veterans and guys that you were just hoping to be depth pieces, that becomes a problem, especially when you struggle to generate pass rush outside of literally just one guy. So I think they can be better this year. Bullish on Jordan Battle at safety. I think he's going to be a nice kid to get him 90% snaps this year. I think he can, be a big play guy and is a real nice run filler from the second level, which I don't think Von Bell and Geno Stone were last year. Demetrius Knight, I think they really like. I think he gets starter reps at linebacker. I think the defense can be better. And look, the offensive line got to stay intact, keep them upright. Like, we'll see the new guys at guard with Fairchild and Patrick, if they can play. Obviously, having Orlando Brown, you drafted Mims last year. These guys all kind of stay together. Schedule is a little tough. I think the Ravens are legit and a problem there. So I don't think that necessarily that I'm in on the Bengals to win the division, but I definitely think they could be a playoff team. And that's tough. I mean, the AFC is really rich with real, true playoff contenders.
Yeah. I think it might be the Ann Arbor in me that's talking, but DJ Turner and Dax Hill, they're
Chris
really
Jenkins,
relying on.
That's a lot of maize and blue right there.
Yeah. I just looked up, like, when they were actually playing last year, their PFF coverage grades were, above average in the high 60s. And that's certainly promising. You really hope those guys come back and can, be contributors or maybe take a leap. Because if they can, and that offense can do what we all expect that offense to do, and we know that's somewhat predictable, and Joe Burrow stays healthy and Jamar Chase stays healthy, I think there's a pretty high upside there. I don't know how high, obviously, in that conference, but I actually kind of think it's the right way to go for them. So I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, look, Joe, like you said, it's Joe Burrow. We know that we're getting 16, 17 games from Joe Burrow. Like, I'm not putting a cap on what this team could do. Not at all.
Yep. Ryan Noonan, thank you so much for joining me on the Football Analytics Show. Please let everyone know where they can find all your good work.
Move the line wherever you listen to podcasts. 4 for 4 bets on the YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Noonan. I'll get you a mix of golf outright winners and defensive props, probably. So, but hopefully that works for people. You like to sweating outright winners is a lot of fun too. It's a great way to bet in the off season. So appreciate you having me on as always, buddy.
Absolutely, love having you on. I believe we were 2 for 2 on golf bets in 5 Nugget Saturday this off season.
We were. I think we were.
So that's pretty awesome. And now we're going to be transitioning back to football. Looking forward to hopefully getting more of you in 5 Nugget Saturday. And best of luck with the season.
Thanks, buddy. You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host. Just a reminder, you can grab 5 Nugget Saturday, where you can get insights from people like Ryan Noonan and my own work as well. Check that out at thepowerrank.com. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again next week.